1 in 3 people in this room will be dead within the year. You don't know that yet. You're just cold. It is February 1351. You wake before the bells. The straw mat beneath you is damp. Not from rain, from the breath of 11 people sharing a single-room house on the eastern edge of Bruges. Your father's workshop is directly below. You can smell the tallow from up here. That animal fat thickness soaked into the rafters so deep you stopped noticing it years ago. You notice it now. Later, you will understand why. The body memorizes ordinary things when it senses it is about to lose them. You are 16 years old. You are a candle dipper's apprentice. You are nobody. History has no plans to remember you. And here's the thing. That is exactly why what happens next will happen to you. You pull on your second pair of socks. Both pairs have holes. You have learned to layer them so the holes don't overlap. This is the kind of problem solving that fills your days right now. Small and practical and completely separate from the thing already moving through the wool merchant's quarter 2 streets over, already folding Peter Vandenberg's wife into herself like wet cloth. Already waiting for you with no patience and no mercy and no interest in your name. In your pocket, a small wooden disc the size of a large coin. Your mother carved it the year she died, not of plague, of ordinary fever 6 winters ago, the kind of death that doesn't require a story. She pressed it into your palm without saying what it was for. A habit, she called it. Something to hold when your hands need to be somewhere. You roll it between your fingers as you descend the stairs. You don't think about it. That's the point. By noon, the rumors have bodies. The wool merchant's wife is dead. His eldest son is dead. The second son has the swellings. That is the word people use on the street, not plague. Not yet, because naming it feels like inviting it. And he has been locked inside while the merchant himself stands at the doorway, not leaving, not entering, just standing in the February cold, without his hat on. You think, walking past with a delivery of church candles, that you have never seen an adult look so entirely like a child before. You know what the swellings mean? Everyone knows. The plague burned through Bruges in 1349 and took 30% of the city. You were 14, and you watched your neighbor's entire household disappear in 6 days, one after another, as methodical as a closing of doors. You thought it was over. Everyone thought it was over. That is what you think when something like this passes through you once. You think, not again. You think, I survived it once, so I've survived it. You haven't learned yet that the plague doesn't think in terms of once. The candle delivery takes you past the wool market, past the dyer's quarter where the canal smells of iron and ammonia, past the churchyard where 3 new mounds broke the snow last week. You count them without meaning to. The city has started to smell different. Not like bodies, more like a held breath. Something metabolic and collective, a city's immune system activating. There is a detail no school book mentions. In plague years, people stopped washing their faces with river water. The connection to waterborne disease hadn't been made, but enough people had watched enough neighbors sicken after the communal trough that there was an instinctive withdrawal. You have been washing your face in rainwater for weeks. You didn't decide to. You just started doing it. The way the body knows things before the mind catches up. The old woman who gives you your church candle deliveries is named Margaret. She has survived 2 plague years. She has buried 2 husbands, 1 daughter, 4 grandchildren, and a donkey she loved more than any of them, she says, and you believe her. Margaret is your education, and you don't know it yet. You're still using both routes to the market, she says that afternoon, not looking up from the wick threading. It isn't a question. The southern route is faster. The southern route goes past the linen weaver's house. He's dead since yesterday. Walk north. How do you know he's dead? She looks at you then. I know because I've watched enough people die to understand the smell. And I know because I walked past his window at dawn and the smell was there. She pauses. You need to learn the difference between the smell of illness and the smell of bodies. It'll keep you alive more reliably than any prayer. This is the first lesson. You don't write it down. You roll the wooden disc in your pocket and listen. What Margaret teaches you over the following 3 weeks is not heroism. It is topology. She teaches you the map of a city under plague. Not its streets, but its patterns of contact. Which market stalls share the same water supply? Which families have cousins in the wool trade? Which means the disease reached them 2 weeks before it reached the candle makers. Which houses have rats? Which have dogs? Which have neither? She doesn't explain why any of this matters. She just tells you what she observes and lets you work out the architecture of it. People want meaning, she tells you one evening, feeding the brazier with calm attention. They want the plague to be punishment or mercy or testing. It isn't any of those things. It is a system. You survive a system by understanding it, not by deserving to. You haven't told her about your mother's disc. But that night, walking home along the northern route, you press it between your thumb and forefinger and think that it is the same thing Margaret is describing. Not meaning, just habit. Just a shape your hands return to. The way water returns to low ground. By the 3rd week of February, the cloth dresser's quarter is locked. Not by force, by consensus, which is somehow worse. Because force at least has a shape you can push against. The wealthier residents have already left for country estates. The churches are holding truncated services. There's a papal dispensation from 1349, still technically in force, that allows priests to hear confession and administer last rites without full training, because there aren't enough trained clergy left. Some parishes are being run by men who received emergency ordination in a matter of days. The institution held. The people inside it had been mostly replaced. When you ask Margaret once whether she prays, she says, I used to pray for people I loved. Now I just try to keep them alive. It feels like the same energy, directed more efficiently. You think about this for a long time. The 4th week of February. You think you know this story. You don't. Margaret's neighbor, an elderly fuller named Thomas, who has the physical presence of a man who intends to survive everything indefinitely, develops the swellings on a Tuesday. By Thursday, you watch Margaret stand outside his door with a bundle of food she has prepared, knowing she will not knock, knowing he would not want her to, knowing there is nothing the bundle contains that will change the Tuesday to Thursday arithmetic of what is happening inside. She leaves it on the step and walks back without looking. You understand in this moment that survival is full of exits that are not announced, that most of the human cost in a disaster is not the dramatic loss, not the moment of death, but the 1,000 small abandonments that survival requires. The untouched door, the undelivered bundle, the route you take that doesn't go past certain windows anymore. You say nothing. Margaret says nothing. She tells you the northern route now has a new problem, a household 3 doors down. And here's a third route, longer, that avoids both. And listening to her voice, that this is grief processed into logistics, and that this is not a failure of feeling. It is what feeling looks like when it has nowhere left to go but forward. This is the second lesson. You don't write it down either. The moral breaking point comes on a Friday. A woman and 2 small children, known to you by sight from the market, come to Margaret's door. The husband is dead. They have been in their house for 5 days with the body because the burial detail hasn't come, and the neighbors won't let them out. They have nothing, no food, no water, no knowledge of whether the children are already infected. The woman's face has the particular expression of someone who has been in a small space with fear for too long. Not tears, something beyond tears, a kind of hollow clarity. Margaret feeds them. She brings them in, which is the thing you have been taught not to do, which is the thing that every system she has built for 3 weeks says not to do. Later, when they have eaten and the children are asleep near the brazier, you ask her quietly. She looks at you and says, "I know exactly what I did. Don't think I don't know." And you realize that the lesson was never about the map. The lesson was about what you do with the moment the map runs out. You put your hand in your pocket. The disc is there. The mother's name is Elise. Her children are named Jan and a small girl who doesn't speak. You don't ask the small girl's name. You think later that this might be the thing you regret most. Not any grand failure, just that you didn't ask her name while you had the chance. The children are not infected. Elise is not infected. They leave after 2 nights, Margaret having arranged shelter with a family in the Tanners district who owe her a debt from the last plague year. The small girl turns and looks at you before the coroner takes her. You don't know what you are to her. Just a background figure in the story of the 2 nights her mother kept her alive. You are nobody. But the way she looks at you before the coroner takes her, it lands somewhere and stays. Margaret dies in March. Not of plague. She slips on the ice at the canal edge in the early morning, collecting the rainwater she prefers for washing, and the canal is cold and black, and she is gone in the time it takes the sun to cross 2 finger widths of sky. An ordinary death in an extraordinary year, with no story attached. You are alone with the roots she taught you, and the system she built, and the map of contact and contamination that lives now only in your head. You are 16, and you know more about surviving a plague than any physician in Bruges, and none of it was given to you in a form you can show anyone. All of it is pattern and attention and the specific weight of the moment the map runs out. The city contracts through spring. More lockdowns in the cloth quarter. The churchyard can't keep pace. There's a period in April where bodies are interred in the market garden outside the east wall, which will not be spoken about officially for another 2 decades. The plague-specific gravediggers charge triple their 1349 rates by April, which means that for the poor, the burial detail sometimes comes late, and windows stay shuttered, and you learn to read the city's silences the way Margaret taught you. You do not get sick. You don't know why. Neither does anyone else. The germ theory of disease is 4 centuries away, and the best medical opinion of 1351 attributes plague survival variously to cold air from the north, strong bile, or divine preference. None of these will hold up. You just live the way people live, without deserving to, without a reason that satisfies. By June, the second wave exhausts itself. The cloth dresser's quarter reopens. The market resumes. Fewer stalls, fewer voices. The geometry of the square somehow wrong. Too much space between bodies, like a mouth with teeth missing. You keep making the deliveries. You keep walking the northern route. One morning in early July, you take the wooden disc out and look at it properly for the first time. Really look at it. The way you look at something when you've been carrying it so long you've stopped seeing it. It is small, asymmetric. The carving is simple. Not a cross, not a saint, not any symbol you can name. Just a mark your mother's hands made because her hands were moving and the wood was there. It is not a relic. It is not a talisman. It is just the record of a moment when someone's hands were moving and something small was left. You think about Elise and the small girl who turned at the corner. You think about Margaret at the canal edge in the pale early morning light. You think about Thomas, the fuller, and the bundle on the step, and the door Margaret did not knock on. The disc is smooth where your thumb has worn it. 6 years of a habit that wasn't yours first, a shape your hands return to, because some things get inherited without words. You are nobody. History will not record your name, or Margit's name, or the small girl's name that you never asked. The chronicles will note the number of dead, the disruption of commerce, the ecclesiastical response. They will not note the routes you walked. They will not note what it cost Margit to leave the bundle on the step and keep walking. They will not note the 2 nights the small girl slept near the brazier, while the city held its breath around her. This is not a tragedy. This is just how most of history works. In the unremarked actions of unremarked people who found, in the worst of systems, the moment the map ran out, and chose anyway. The smell of tallow in the rafters, the wooden disc in your pocket, the northern route longer that avoids both. You have survived. You thought it would feel like arriving somewhere. Instead, it feels like standing at an ordinary edge, where one stone ends and the next begins. The small girl turned and looked at you. You didn't ask her name. You are still carrying the not asking of it. Maybe that is what survival is. Not what you kept, but what you carry. What would you have held on to? And does carrying it out mean you're still the person who went in? And tell me in the comments, when Margit brought the family inside, knowing the risk, was that the right choice? Or did survival stop mattering to her by then? Join the journey by hitting that subscribe button. Your support means the world to me.